Hey everyone, Ian King here, editor at Smart Profits Daily with your weekly market insights video. As always, I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Jeff Yastine. Jeff, how's it going this week?
Yeah, it's going great. Going good.
Good to see you. So before we start, I just want to remind everyone, please subscribe to our channel. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. Tell your friends. Hit that milestone of 2,000. Help us get there, please. If you like our content, please hit like, and then you're always feel free to leave comments below. Jeff, let's get in the time machine for a second. The year is 1995. You're working at PBS's nightly business report on assignment, and the company has given you a brand new, shiny 15-pound laptop. What kind of chip is in that laptop back then in the mid-90s, Jeff? Do you remember?
Yeah, it would definitely be an Intel chip in those days, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And so you're carrying this 15-pound behemoth laptop around, which is a fraction of how powerful even mobile phones are today. And it's using Intel chips. And a lot of people, when you ask them about what are the biggest chip makers in the world, people think about Intel. But the reality is, there are other chip companies that have been really eating away at Intel's market share over the last decade or so. And Jeff, you spoke about one of them in your January update for Smart Profits Daily. Can you elaborate on this company a little bit more for us, please?
Sure. I mean, that company was Nvidia. You and I both know the symbol NVDA, and they make GPUs, graphical processing units, and they're the company, in my view, that's making the preeminent processors. We're sort of past just chips with today's systems requiring so much more built-in intelligence and power. But I liked Nvidia then. I like it now. I liked it when I recommended it back in January because as a stock, it was much more cheaply valued, if you will, than Intel was at the time. And of course, the stock is, 30 or 40% higher, 45% higher since then, even with the coronavirus correction and the rebound we've had since then. So Nvidia, I know you share the same feeling. Nvidia is the place to be if you're looking at buying just one chip stock.
So what do you think about Nvidia right now, Jeff? Because I see it's up 30 to 40%. It does trade at about 170 times earnings, but like you said, if they can continue taking market share from Intel, this could still be a winner in the next couple of years, right?
It definitely could. I think it's just one of those ones where you have to be patient. When I wrote that article in January, I think the expectations were for 2021 was that they were going to earn around $7.55 a share in profits. Now, as we're taping this, the expectation is that Nvidia is going to earn over $8 a share in profits. But when you take today's last week's stock price and divide it just by that $8 in expected profits for next year, you're talking about a PE of 42, 43, 44, which actually happens to be at the high end of Nvidia's range of PE multiples going back 20 years. So you do have to be careful, and we could always see a broad market pullback that brings a lot of these stocks down. But you have to just keep that in mind and know that when that happens, you want to buy into that weakness, and that's always tough for so many people to do, buy weakness, because of course you're always just worried the stock will just keep dropping like a stone, like we saw in February and March.
Right, and that also brings me to another big driver for the semiconductor space this year, and that is the 5G rollout. I think the biggest event of 2020 in terms of 5G is going to be Apple unveiling a 5G phone sometime in September. And this is going to be really good for one company in particular, and that's Qualcomm. Jeff, any thoughts on Qualcomm? Because when Apple comes out with 5G phones, we know that Apple has had this kind of legal battle with Qualcomm, but they still use the chips. So that has to be saying something, right?
Oh, definitely. And, it's interesting when you get into Qualcomm, they generate and they supply components to so many different parts of the sort of ecosystem of technology, and they're all in on 5G. And I think even if Apple was making other decisions that were not favorable to Qualcomm, they would still be doing really, really well. And they pay a good dividend as well. So it's one of those stocks that you can buy, and it's not going to be like Nvidia. It's not going to go up 40 or 50% in a handful of months. But at the same time, it's just a good, solid stock. And when you step back and you look at the chart for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it just has one of those unstoppable trends because they're into, they put their material, their components into so many parts of the technology ecosystem. No matter where you look, chances are there's a Qualcomm chip or component in there someplace.
Absolutely. And like you said, not only are they making the mobile chipset modems, but they're also making this radio frequency device. And they're moving into a space that has other competitors. But Qualcomm seems to have an advantage here because they can bundle both the modem and the RF device in one sale. And so that gives them leverage on the handset makers like Apple and Samsung and Nokia because they can sell this bundle. And so I like Qualcomm. I mean, the stock's trading at 20 times earnings. And like you said, it's not going to be a high flyer like Nvidia or AMD, but it's just a solid, steady grower. And it's a good way to play the 5G handset rollout in the next couple of years.
It is. It's to me, the Qualcomm is like the safe bet. As you said, you're not going to make a ton of money on it, but it's a great way to position your portfolio in a way that you're going to benefit from this 5G rollout. And again, I couldn't agree more. 5G is this gigantic trend, and we're just getting started. So again, I'll just repeat what I said earlier about Nvidia. If we get some sort of broad market pullback, and that we could get one of those at any time, it would be actually a very healthy thing to happen. If that happens, Qualcomm is another one of the stocks you want to buy on weakness. And the great thing about Qualcomm is, even if the stock falls some more and you're underwater for a few months, the fact is it pays a nice dividend. So you're just getting paid to wait, which is even better. That's
true. And Jeff, I can see by those computer monitors behind you that you've really come a long way since that Dell laptop you had in the mid-90s. Now, you seem to be on the cutting edge of tech. Are you going to buy a 5G phone this year? I know our viewers want to know this question. Are you going to be upgrading to a new 5G phone at some point this year?
Not this year. And the only reason why is because my old phone basically fell apart, the screen cracked, et cetera, last year. So I went out and bought a, where is that? I went out and bought a Samsung S10, which actually was state of the art until about, 6 months ago. And it was just one of those things I couldn't put it off. So I'll probably wait, get a little more use out of this, and then upgrade to the 5G version, which just came out the other day, in fact, for Samsung, which is the S20.
Wow.
So, I just saw an ad, a pop-up ad for it the other day. And as you said, Apple, when they do their introduction, if that's coming in September, chances are whatever happens between now and September, that lead-up period to that press conference for Apple is going to be one of those things that I think helps move the rest of the tech sector sharply higher, because that's what I think everybody on Wall Street is going to be looking at as, okay, now we got to buy 5G, as if they didn't know already. But as you know, and I know, sometimes Wall Street, they wait for the all clear, like a big press conference, before they start putting, big institutional sized amounts of money to work. And the Apple press conference in September is a good example of a place to look where they'll put that money to work.
I used to live across the street from the Apple store in downtown Manhattan. And I can tell you, for the first couple versions of iPhone, there was always a long line on the street. In fact, the first iPhone, there were people sitting outside of the store for a week. And I remember it was a hot summer month. It was 90 degrees during the day with sun, and it was pouring rain at night. I remember there was one guy near the front of the line that looked like a lobster because he had been sitting in the sun all week, but he was one of the first people to get his iPhone. That's how excited people used to be. But for this upgrade cycle, I think this has got to be the biggest upgrade on the iPhone since I think the 3G phones came out way back in 2009. So I know a lot of people are excited about it. You just bought a new phone, so you're probably not as excited as people who have had an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 7 and are just ready for the new 5G technology. But I think we're going to see some lines outside Apple for the first time in a number of years, and that's going to be exciting to the entire tech industry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, believe me, and for this phone, believe me, when the 5G rollouts really happen in earnest in a handful of months, I'm going to be suffering from what do we call it, FOMO, fear of missing out. That's what I'm going to be thinking, watching everybody else. But it's mainly just because I already have an investment in this thing, and I just want to get a little bit more out of it before I upgrade to a 5G phone, because the capabilities are much like the difference between the capabilities. It's much like you were just talking about earlier regarding a laptop I would have been using in the mid 90s versus today's phone or today's laptop of any kind, any brand, or even the monitors behind me. Right.
And you'll never feel that sense of frustration where something doesn't load instantaneously anymore. Hopefully we can get rid of that. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Jeff, always great to see you. If you like our content, please hit like. It helps us share our videos with other people like yourself. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll speak to you next week. Thank you.